concerning that. Currently, we are seeing large numbers as being reported, in some of those polling units. So it's important to also interrogate why this is happening. What are the factors responsible? How can we amplify those factors and perhaps even institutionalize them so that it doesn't become a flash in the pan? It becomes a consistent occurrence, So that is something that all stakeholders around the process should actually study and look into so that we can sustain this and perhaps use that template in other places where voter apathy has always been a huge challenge. I'm glad that the voters are highlighting that fact, and I'm sure INEC is listening, and that they would make necessary adjustments, in polling units such as these ones, so that voters don't spend long hours on the queue. So I find it particularly interesting that if what we are seeing from the places where we have received these reports is indicative of what is predominantly happening in other places, then we will be very happy at the end of the day that perhaps in Anambra State the challenge of voter apathy has been defeated. Off-season elections usually offer learning opportunities, even as we approach the general elections. But then if you look at it, the peace that is being reported in the course of this elections thus far is reflective of voter sensitization and education, which a National Orientation Agency and civil society, have carried out over the period.
Okay. Let me hold you there. We'll come to you before we lose the signals. Let's go to Ekuchigo, where Chinyere and Onome are standing by to bring us up to speed of the update. So Chinyere, we're on to you.
Thank you, Omini. This is Umuabo Primary School, Ihembosi, in Ekusigo local government area. We have two polling units. Ekusigo local government area, and we have two polling units here. They've just concluded voting and sorting, and now moving to their collation centers for the next line of action. All the places we visited today, the exercise, I must tell you, people confirmed has been so seamless. No violence, no intimidation, no molestation of any sort from anybody. I have some of the people who took part in today's exercise here with me to tell us their assessments so far. I have some of the voters here. Let me start with Chief Ebuka Onunkwo. Sir, may we know you?
Yeah, my name is Ebuka Onunkwo, the chairman of Campaign Council Ekusigo for Abuja, and we are here observing everything that's happening. I also participated in voting, so I'm happy to announce to you that everything has been peaceful. There is no record of any violence of any sort, and there is great improvement, and there is great turnout to compare what we recorded in the just immediate past by-election that took place some months ago. So everything is going on well.
Okay, some of the places I visited, some people complained of not seeing their names on the voter register. Some say that the beaver could not capture them. What's the situation here? What happened here? What about the functionality of the beavers?
Yeah, there is great improvement. We didn't record such, even if it takes some minutes to delay, but at the end, everybody that came here was captured, and all of them voted. So,
okay.
Yeah, my assessment is the exercise was peaceful. Like I said earlier, there is no record of any violence, no snatching of ballot boxes, and no glitches. As you know, it was earlier said in maybe elections that passed before, there are no glitches. Everything worked out well. People turned out well. People voted well. No inducement, nothing. So I think there is great improvement in the part of INEC, and there is great improvement also in the part of the voters, especially these people of Ihembos of Ekusigo local government.
Okay, the people of Ihembos in Ekusigo local government, they say they conducted themselves in very orderly manner, and as you can see even the young, the old, very aged women around here, and you can even see a physically challenged person on his bike here. So let's also hear from him. Let's hear from him how he feels about today's exercise. Okay. Your name?
My name is Ifechukwu Anozie.
Your name is?
Ifechukwu Anozie. Ifechukwu Salas Anozie.
How did today's exercise go?
Everything they go okay. Okay. Akwụkwọ trota dị okay. Ọ gara n'anya ya ọfụma. Chineke mara ọ ga ọfụma. Everything aga normal. So all dị okay. Chineke nọ n'ọrụ mee ihe niile ọ dị easy.
Were you assisted in any form as a physically challenged person?
Yes, it will help me well. Do me everything do okay. So it's very fine.
Okay, Silas says that the exercise actually went on well. That as a physically challenged person, that he was given priority voting, and he was assisted. The moment he came in, people assisted him and they gave him attention. He cast his ballot, and that's it. And don't forget, I have my colleague Onome Okadibo, who has been all out with me today. So let's hear her own. Let's hear her own experiences and how they conduct. So Onome is here with me. Onome, let's hear from you.
Thank you so much, Chinyere, for that. From Nnewi North down to Nnewi South, the process has been seamless. We visited some areas in Nnewi North and South. Observers say most electorates came out early, and they were part of the process. From what they said, most of the beavers worked very, very well. The process was very seamless. So from Nnewi North to Nnewi South, there were no skirmishes, no violence. The whole process was seamless, though in some polling units visited, we observed that some started quite late, and as at some polling units visited, so as at 3 o'clock, some of them were still in the voting process. But as at now, most of them have collated their results. They have packaged everything and sent to the collation center. So I must say that the whole process is seamless. Now I have Mr. Okay. I have Mr. Wanyi Jude. So Mr. Jude, come and tell us what is your assessment of the process compared to previous elections?
Presently is far better than the previous ones you have had. There's great improvement in everything, the beavers and others. So we are improving. INEC is improving. Anambra State too is improving. Nigeria is improving. So we are happy. Everything where the conduct in every aspect is okay.
Thank you so much. So did you observe any vote buying or any kind of...
Nothing like that here. That did not happen. Everything went well, and we had fair and free election.
Thank you so much. Okay, can we have you on set? Well, from what observers say, that the whole process is seamless, while we wait for our second guest to join us to give us his own assessment of the electoral process here at Ekusigo, a local government between Nnewi North and South. So, tell us your name.
Lazarus Eke. I love this election. The election is very, very perfect. This is a place, things move normal. In Anambra, I never see this type of election. The election is moving well. There is no any problem. There is no any fight. Everything is moving well. I thank this Anambra election. I love it well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. So, Omini, you have heard our respondents, what they have said about the election so far from Ekwisigo in Ihembosi, in Ekwisigo local government area of Anambra State. So from all the places visited from Nnewi North to Nnewi South, then the villages connecting Nnewi South and Nnewi South, North and South, like Ekwisigo local government area. So Chinyere, my colleague, will be here to say, okay. Okay, so we are leaving Ihembosi. So Chinyere, where are you? So from here, we'll be moving to other collation centers to give you an update of the election. So let's hear from Chinyere.
Okay, from here, we'll be moving down to Nnewi North and South to continue the process. Until then, continue doing the right work. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chinyere and Onome.
Okay, so for announcements and collections, we'll keep you updated. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Chinyere and Onome. They reached us there from Ekwisigo axis of Anambra State. Well, you heard there all the same impressions. Now, I picked something from that update we got. From the point of sorting to the collation center, could something happen? What safeguards can we put in place?
Absolutely. And this is what...
Is there a guarantee that it must be smooth all through?
Yes, we hope so. We hope so that it's smooth, because that's why I called it the business end. That's
the entire process.
Yeah, the entire process. That's where we have seen in the past, even in general elections in this country or presidential elections, which are way bigger constituency, the collation process. You need people that have the right arithmetic skills. You need, a lot of integrity in that process, such that you will not have a situation in which people vote and then people decide, just by the process of collation, decide, they want to allocate votes the other way. So a lot can go wrong if the right thing is not done.
But will you say there are no safeguards in place for this?
No, there are safeguards in place, and part of those safeguards is the transparency mechanism that we have in the process, which are good enough. Technology has helped to ensure that extra layer of transparency. I mean, the IREV, for example, plays a critical role in that, in terms of upload of results for us to have a basis to compare with the physically collated results. And which is why in the whole debate around electoral reform, one of the major aspect of reform that civil society is pushing in the current ongoing reform process is that the electronic transmission of results should be made compulsory. It should no longer be a discretionary thing. It should be something that is done to provide that extra layer of transparency, because we've seen in the past where collation is a problem, and then it mars all the good work that has been done. So I think that is fundamental. But I think it's also important that I weigh in on the conversation from the previous discussion,
yes,
which was focusing on the question of the high number of some polling units. Yes. Some polling units that have very high number of voters compared to others. And my own position on that is that we do not need to wait till elections or after the elections to start saying, okay, we want to reform all of those processes. We should have a process in place where we are able to audit our voter register, because you can take care of this problem proactively from the point of from the point of voter registration. And so that is why one of the recommendations from civil society is to have in place independent audit of the voter register. So in the process of audit, you can see the way you can clean up the register, and you can also already identify where polling units are having too many voters, and then you can do some administrative tweaking of the polling units to ensure that you have very manageable numbers and people are able to come out there and exercise their franchise on election day. So I would rather that we don't wait until we are confronted with the problem on election day and then start thinking of reforming another electoral cycle. Let's take advantage of the voter registration process to ensure, and that's why, of course, there is also opportunity for claims. The Electoral Act provides for that. People can make claims, during the voter registration process. So if we do that in a proactive way, I don't think we'll be confronted with that problem right in the middle of the election.
Okay, we'll shortly join Professor Victor Adetula, Chair Election Analysis Center, EAC, via Zoom. If he's ready, we'll see signals, we'll get to him. If he's not ready, we'll come back to this today. Is he ready? Prof, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Okay. How is Oka at this time?
Oh, well, that's a very broad question. Oka is fine. We've just returned from a number of polling units we visited, and the CDDEAC has issued its preliminary statements on the process of polling so far. Where things have gone here and there have been mixed reactions and responses. There are generally, like we predicted in our previous reports, that there was most likely to going to be voter apathy. That has turned out to be the case. And of course, despite the massive deployment of security agents across the state for election purpose, there have been a lot of, let me say, heightened transactional politics. Vote trading continue, and inducements in various forms. That's been what has been recorded so far or observed so far in most of the units where they have finished voting. Process of transmission has commenced, and we are still watching.
Okay, thank you so much, Prof. So when you say voter apathy, but we have recorded cases where we had some sort of lopsidedness in balancing regarding the polling centers. We have a polling center in Niger Ward that had over 1,000 voting voters, and we had a huge turnout. The pictures were there clear. So can you tell us exactly where you say voter apathy?
And when I said voter apathy, generally the dominant trend reflects voter apathy. There are people moving up and down and not necessarily participating in the polling. And like you rightly noted, there are a few places where you could see massive presence of voters. There's a particular place I visited, and I can't remember the name, but it turned out to be the community of the governor. And the particular polling station where the governor voted, I asked for the number of voters registered there, and I was given a 933 figure. I have not verified this from INEC. I also asked for the number of PVC received, and I was given 933, exact, very smooth arithmetics. And even physical counting, you see quite a number of people present there. Up to the time we left after 2, people were still voting and people were still sitting down for that purpose. But interestingly, well organized, so to speak. Interestingly, I asked a number of people around, how do you explain this high level of readiness and dedication to the polling process? And of course, they confess that they have been asked to do that at the community level, which is nothing bad about it. But at the same time, there have been some under the table inducements for that to happen. And interestingly, there are aged people and people living with disability present and accorded special treatment. But unfortunately, some of them were being aided to vote because what they would need to make their political judgment in terms of voting were not present, including those who have a challenge with their sight. They have to be assisted by one or two persons around, which again does not agree with the polling guideline. So these are the things that you observe. It's not a uniform observation, but most of the polling units visited display evidence of voters' apathy. Markets are still operating. Shops are still operating in most places.
Okay, thank you so much, Prof. Listening to you from the studio end there, where I'm joined by David Okoji, Amsfree Ajanaku, and Awals Musa Rasafjani. It is clear that from the impression we got that a lot of improvement, like you have clearly stated. Now elections are over. Most of the places where the voting is taking place now is where maybe the process started late. We just finished from a center where just before us they finished voting. I believe sorting is going on now. So far, so good. Given the terrain in Anambra, would you say truly it's an improvement from last election?
Excuse me? If you say last election, you are referring precisely to what? Are you talking about?
The last governorship election. The last governorship election. In Anambra State.
Precisely.
In Anambra State.
Okay, the last governorship
election in Anambra State.
Okay, that is more clearer now. If you identify variables or indicators, it depends on the one you are looking at. For instance, if you are looking at 10.2% voters turnout as the last 2021 governorship election, we may have to wait till the end of counting before we say that. But if you talk about voters' apathy, you can see a sustained trend. A sustained trend from what we have recorded so far today that look, yes, there's still the challenge of voter apathy. Now, what is the reason for this? It may be different from what we had in the previous election. In the previous election, there were narrative around insecurity, narrative around fear, but people are not voting today, not because of insecurity per se. So we have to seek for the explanation outside the old narrative of insecurity and fear. And that is why in our reports, both in terms of the pre-election assessment, we came up to, we draw attention to evident lack of competitiveness in the environment. So people don't have options. That's it. People don't see options in the game. Can I give you one example? I traveled 45 minutes outside Nnewi, outside Oka, and the journey of 45 minutes, I could only see the poster of one candidate throughout that.
It's okay. Now the election is over. Sorting is going on now. If I ask you in terms of logistic arrangement by INEC, any improvements?
Yeah, well, there has been some improvement in areas compared with what we had in the previous election, but there are gaps that still need to be addressed. And that is why, from our own end, we think the Anambra governorship election 2025 represents an opportunity of lesson learned for INEC. Where things have worked well, okay, they need to note that and build on that. And where things have not worked well, issue of delay in some instances, guys need to look at that more carefully so that in the next exercise, these are addressed. But compared with where we are coming from, there have been some improvement.
Thank you so much, Professor Victor Adetula. We'll come back to you as we want to join our correspondent Benson Idahosa in Ekulobia to give us an update of what's happening there right now. Benson Osadebe, please.
Okay, thank you very much, Benson Osadebe, as you rightly mentioned. We are here in Ekulobia Urban Girls Secondary School, Ward 2. Ekulobia, Agwata local government area has 20 polling units, 20 wards, and in the 20 wards, Ekulobia Urban Girls Secondary School hosts 1 ward. And in that 1 ward, the electoral materials are arriving in their numbers, and the INEC officials are doing justice to that by doing their collations, crossing the T's and dotting the I's, in making sure that the numbers they have on the result sheets tallies with the number they have on their equipment, that is the electronic material they have. So the INEC officials previously have met the collation officer here. I met him previously to talk to us on the process so far, and if need be, express the challenges he had in the course of the election. And he told me that he would have loved to do so, but without permission from the REC, he cannot do so. Meanwhile, the security operatives are very much around. The exercise has shifted pretty much from the electorate to INEC officials. And the youth corps members and the INEC officials are just here trying to tabulate the results. And from here, they'll be moving down to the local government here in Agwata local government area. That is the situation here in Urban Girls Secondary School, Ekulobia, Ward 2.
So from your last location to where you are now, can you compare notes? Were there any hitches on your way here?
No, there's none at all. It's been free ride from where I was, which was at Ward 1, to this particular place, which is Ward 2. Security are still, operatives are still much on the road. You only see people walking and going back to their destinations, and others are just standing in clusters discussing the peaceful outing they had today.
So I can say you are more or less an informed correspondent regarding election coverage. So what's your experience generally, last elections and now?
Compared to last election, there is a high turnout of voters in terms of people coming out to make sure that they cast their ballot here. There is also so much peaceful coexistence in terms of lack of intimidation. There's no form of intimidation in this place, no form of molestation. And though there are still some level of allegations of vote buying in some quarters, but they have not been able to substantiate the figure. So at the end of the day, the election from this particular exercise compared to last 4 years, this one has a kind of improvement in terms of efficiency and efficacy of the beavers and all of that. Recognition of the fingerprints, people going to the polling unit, seeing their names on the paper, and also seeing their name with having their PVCs in their hands and able to vote. Because in the previous elections, we had situations whereby people cannot, fingerprints could not be captured, facial recognition could not be observed, and some people will have a PVC, but they cannot see their name on the voters register. And if you don't see their name on the voters register, they cannot cast their ballot. The only challenge again I noticed again in this particular one is that in most polling units visited, the issue of magnifying lens for PWDs, that is visually impaired people or people with albinism, definitely absent in most of the units visited. But in all, there's improvement in terms of turnout.
Okay, if you had the privilege to vote, would you have voted today?
Yes. If I have privilege to vote, I would have voted today, but duty calls. I must have my fatherland, which is what I'm doing.
Now, the advocacy is what should INEC do to ensure that people like you and me, and indeed some of the guests who are here, have the privilege to vote in future elections before they go to exercise their duties in terms of early voting. If I ask you, what's your take on that?
That is advocacy the media should take up, or at least for INEC to provide an avenue for early voting. At least for some of us who are engaged in such a crucial duties, to engage, join in electing who governs us as Nigerians too. Because depriving us, the media, the security personnel, and some other people who are on essential duty on this day is a huge one, and some of us may not be happy with that development. So INEC should look into that matter. The legislature should look into that matter in terms of amending our laws to accommodate our own community, making sure that at least early voting can serve before we take up our microphones and move, and the police will take their guns and move to the streets to protect others while we disseminate the information on the streets.
Thank you so much, Benson Osadebe. It was nice to listen to you from that end.
Thank you very much.
Okay, or if I go back to Professor Adetula. Now, it's clear, yes, he says voter apathy, but comparatively, there's a lot of improvement. And when we say logistics, that INEC, despite challenges, had a lot of improvements. And here we are also saying what can be done to ensure that people like us and you, and even those in the field, get involved in the process.
Well, I think for me, this is a call that we have been making, and in all the elections since 1999, civil society organizations, ECOWAS, Commonwealth, European Union, African Union, they all come to observe election in Nigeria. And their reports are usually also being presented to INEC and relevant, agencies. So I believe that if INEC have been taking some of these recommendations, some of the issues that keep on occurring, keep on coming, we would have been able to address it. But I'm happy, like I said, we have made huge progress in our electoral process to the extent that we can even share learning and experiences, to other countries. Before this election, if you were to cast back your mind, we have had a situation whereby we have casted more than registered voters in this country. Now, it is impossible for you to do that, courtesy of the technology that we have mainstreamed in our electoral process. And that is why we are appealing to the National Assembly to ensure that this thing is actually mainstreamed in our electoral law, so that it will not be a discretionary, thing. A situation whereby a Supreme Court will just discard a use of technology because it's not actually on the basis of any or contained in our law. So, likewise too, other issues that we have continued to witness, if there's a political will, we can address this. The reason why you saw this apathy, especially in the morning, because we were monitoring this, and by the way, Center for Democracy and Development, CDD, deployed over 178 observers, and from the report we were getting, I have all the reports of all the units that is going on in Anambra. We have noted in the morning, from morning to 12 o'clock, there was actually low turnout of the voters. This is not only because of the insecurity, suspicion. It is because people are also tired of coming to vote, and the election does not translate to good governance in Nigeria.
Yeah.
That is why some people are discouraged from coming. So you come, you stand from morning to night, and you voted. At the end of the day, you are not able to even be allowed to even suggest on how to address problems that continue to affect community and the state or the nation. So this is also a lesson that our public officials, especially the elected official, must not create this gap between the people that voted them and them. Some public officials, they have not come in contact with their people. It's only sarin and harassment by the security agent, killing people that you actually elected. They need to begin to talk to these protocol people driving like crazy as if, the whole world is going to end. They need to stop, marching on people simply because a public official is passing. These are the same people you go to beg to elect you, and after the election, you have turned them to like an enemy, as if you are in a war zone. I think election, elected officials should understand that there's need to interact with the electorate. For example, the legislators are provided with constituency offices. That constituency offices is not for decoration. It is meant to interact, suggest ideas, provide credible information and data to your representative so that he or she goes to the assembly. If there's, for example, an early warning, through that, if there's an incident of any potential violence, through the early warning, information, you will be able to communicate that and that address. So it's not just about attending wedding, naming ceremony, and what have you. The second thing that I want to also draw our attention is that when you are making so many promises that is outside the mandate of your office, for example, if you are a legislator or you are contesting a legislative position, you don't need to be telling people that you are going to build road, you are going to build hospital, you are going to build, schools. These are not your responsibility. And that is why you see people are now coming to you for things that is not your actually responsibility. Number 4 is that you have made this constituency, project to be a primary responsibility when it is not even, there's no even legal framework on it. So people collect all this money, in the name of constituency project, no supervision, no audit, no accountability. And that's why EFCC and ICPC have arrested so many of them. Many contractors that have connived with members have refunded money. Go and check with EFCC and ICPC. I am saying that during the campaign, choose your word carefully. Then commit yourself to what you cannot, that is not, within your own, office, power and authority. I think you will have minimized expectation of the people, and people will vote for you on the basis of the clear articulated manifesto of your party that you have. Now, people are running away, and doing this election like on individual basis, whereas you are coming from a political party platform that you are supposed to be talking about the party manifesto so that people can hold both you and the party accountable. Now, you are personalizing the thing and you are just making it like so personal, personal business. And that's why we need to change those scenarios. However, like I said, we must commend the Anambra people for the fact that so much, anticipation of violence will not happen. I think if you allow me, I will say that the ongoing threats by the U.S.
You have said this the 4th time.
Yeah. No, it's because it is true. It is part of it that is making those who probably want to do trouble so that they will not also, enter trouble. So they will probably have to stay away and do that. And then, of course, those who have taken advantage of the federal might, they are also careful so that they won't also be in trouble, because now everyone now is watching so that you don't do things that, that is not only in Nigeria that you are being watched, you are also being watched everywhere in the world. And since some of them that are mobilizing for violence, they have so much, resources probably taken illegally and deposited in abroad, they are now scared that their resources or the stolen asset can also be seized. There are so many factors that is making this, and that's why I say we just have to come back and be responsible in this country so that nobody will come and tell us how to run our country. If this country is run on the basis of justice, fairness, democratic, aspiration, I think we will not need anybody outside to come and tell us what we need to do to run our country in a manner that every Nigerian will feel free and protected, as a citizen.
Thank you so much. Let's come back to the mapping before election. Most times, if you don't map properly, it will affect logistic arrangements. This one is almost, if you tell me it's in some states, by now you hear some locations elections have not commenced. Although we had cases of materials arriving late and the process starting late, but almost all the locations where we have gotten a reporter give us updates, elections are concluded, and we are looking to the next phase now. So what will we learn from here?
Yes, so I think what we learn from here is the fact that even within the election management body, internal accountability is critical. And one thing the new chairman said, which may not have been the overall factor responsible, but the new chairman said, I will not only hold myself accountable for this trust, I will also hold, or will also ensure there's a mechanism to hold every single person working within INEC as an institution accountable. And I think, again, some of these things, in terms of lesson learned, also speak to reform. Now, we've had a situation in which this election, looking at the logistics, worked out well. And you cannot really say that despite some of the challenges we've had here and there, that there was any intention on the part of INEC to subvert or delay the deployment of materials. But where you have maybe a rec, who is unable to show that competence, what is the procedure for ensuring accountability? What's the procedure for discipline? And which is why we talk about electoral reform also, not just in the appointment of the INEC chair himself. The appointment of the rec is also something that a political partisan in the president has to do. So we must also get to that point where even the resident electoral commissioner, where they are able to do and achieve, they get the commendation, but where they fail to also administer in a way that delivers, there should also be a mechanism, to ensure there's discipline and there's, the management of that. So I think going forward in the electoral reform process, we should prioritize these, and we should take the lessons that have been learned. And that's why, like Professor Daniel was talking about the election review, we may not be able to apprehend all the factors that were responsible right now, but in the post-mortem of the election, in the review of the election, we should be able to sit down and say, okay, this is why this worked. And so in the coming off-season elections, off-cycle elections that we'll be having next year, Ekiti and Osun in 2026, we should now be able to take that template and build on what has worked here. Then in terms of the political space, where we talk about the apathy and no apathy, I want to explain apathy in two ways. There is the anecdotal reading of apathy. That's just merely looking at a polling unit. Oh, there are a lot of people here. And then there's a data-driven analysis of apathy. That can only come when we have, collated the results have been announced, and we see the total number of people that have come out. And so much of the discussion around apathy is basically anecdotal now, because we don't really have the data to really substantiate the level of apathy. But my reading, given what I've seen so far, is that we may see a marginal improvement on what we had in 2021. And for me, that would be like a little improvement, and then it's something to now build on in the context of voter education, to say that you can see the vote is counting, so you need to come out of course, we'll be doing also the advocacy to remove all of the barriers that stop people from coming out. So by and large, when we are able to link that nexus between timely delivery of material, efficient functionality of the technology, and then move it on to security, the information system, and then, of course, the role of the political actors themselves, ensuring that they don't mobilize outlaws to overrun the process. And then you go on to results management. Then, of course, our electoral, the credibility of the electoral process will be getting that improvement it sorely needs. And we can hold our heads high at that point to say that Nigeria has come of age in terms of credible elections.
It got to a period where Nigerians almost lost it in terms of knowing fully well that voting is a civic responsibility. And but it's beginning to dawn on us again, a lot of us again, that, oh, this is a civic responsibility, I should. Because in some climes, you don't need to even conscientize something or you need to go and vote. So what would Noah do in this direction to sustain this spirit? Because imagine in Anambra, for instance, we have people who by last election they're not eligible to vote, but they voted in this election. Did they vote because they saw it as a civic duty, or they voted because they just saw that people voting? So we see Noah doing a lot of work here.
Before I answer that question, I'd like to provide some preface that I think perhaps will be useful to the general conversation. There are some points that the professor, who is online now, made.
We're going to him after you.
Yes, that I think
he's waiting to hear us.
Yes, that I think we should not gloss over. You know, I find it curious that his own observation on the field is a complete variance with what the reporters of NTA are giving us from various polling units. Now, different perspectives are actually useful to have a holistic impression of what is going on the field. But we have seen videos and pictures from the field that suggest that, and then testimonies, you know, not just from NTA correspondents, but from people who are participating in the process, that there's some level of improvement in voter turnout. That's one. I think I want to contextualize that around perhaps the point that Rafsanjani made to the effect that from the morning hours up till 12, not many people had turned out. And then from the videos we're seeing from various polling units, we found that voting was still going on up till this late afternoon in some of those polling units. And the reason was that many people turned out. And the rules from INEC is that if you're already on the queue, you must vote before poll closes.
Yes.
You know, so that could account also for why we're seeing that. The other issue I want to highlight is the issue that the prof raised concerning this 45-minute trip that he made from Oka
to
Newi, outside of the place, and the fact that he could only see posters of one candidate. Now, the reason why I'm highlighting that is we have information that Anambra State Signage Agency put a levy of 50 million, you know, to allow people to put their posters and to use billboards, you know, and things like that. Okay. You know, and we think that that is something that should attract the immediate attention of INEC. Such practices will escalate election expenses. Okay. Most certainly, not all political parties and nor all candidates can afford 50 million to pay to a government agency, you know, before they are able to erect their posters and other signages that will help promote their candidature. So I think that's a thing of concern. I know that post-election, INEC administers forms to interrogate the extent of expenditure by each candidate with a view to understanding if they have exceeded the allowed thresholds, you know, for election expenses. And INEC does put a threshold, you know, for election expenses. Now, if we gloss over that fact, if it is true that the signage agency in Anambra State put a 50 million naira levy for people to erect their billboards, if that is true, then it portends grave cause for concern, you know, because just as INEC is seeing this as a learning opportunity, participants in the electoral process are also learning from this. We might see a situation where another state agency might put it at 200 million, you know, and then it becomes a tool to use to exclude those who do not have the financial power that perhaps an incumbent, you know, has. And that will not work well for our electoral system. So I just thought we should highlight those two things. Absolutely. As National Orientation Agency, we have not stopped working. Matter of fact, we have opened up a lot more communication platforms, you know, to engage with Nigerians, you know, on various issues of concern. You will know that recently we have unveiled a campaign, an overarching campaign direction, which we are calling the Nigerian Project, you know, the Nigerian Identity Project, and which is driven by the National Values Charter. Now, the National Values Charter, because it's a charter, is a reciprocal agreement between followers and leaders. And inside of it, we're emphasizing the promotion of democracy, you know, and the tenets of democracy as part of the values that are germane and critical to us as a country, you know. So the Nigeria Promise and the Citizens' Codes, one of the critical elements on the Nigeria Promise side is democracy, the promotion of democracy. And democracy here, like I described to you, our perspective as National Orientation Agency is that it doesn't stop at elections. You know, it flows through to post-outcome of elections to the expected outcomes of governance, of good governance. And we're encouraging citizen activism and civil society vibrancy so that across federal, state, and local governments, you know, those who hold authority in trust for the people are interrogated on a constant basis and examined on a constant basis to put them on their toes, so they don't lose sight of the fact that the vote they got was for a purpose, you know, and that the people who cast those votes want those purposes to be, you know, accomplished. So we are on social media, all the social media handles. We are on all the television stations, the big five, Arise channels, TVC, NTA, and the rest of them. We have partnership with over 185 radio stations across this country, many of them broadcasting in local languages. So these are the platforms that we're using to engage with citizens, to conscientize and orientate them, you know, to develop a new perspective.
So would you say this added something to do with the turnout of elections and the response by the citizens?
Absolutely, it contributes. Again, like I told you at the beginning, we don't take all the credit to ourselves as National Orientation Agency, because the quantum of work that is required to be done can hardly ever be accomplished by only one agency. Civil society, which Rafsanjani here and Hands Free represent, are doing tremendous work, and I commend them for the work that they are doing in terms of ensuring citizens' vigilance, which I advocated for, you know, at the beginning of this conversation. But like I told you, we have vastly expanded the platform because we recognize that the target audience, you know, is dynamic and is far more complex than it used to be at the beginning of our democracy. You know, people have preferences for diverse communication platforms, and you must reach everybody on their preferred turf. So this is the work that we're doing at the National Orientation Agency.
Okay, so let's go to Prof. Professor Adetula, are you still there with us? Prof, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, Prof, we are at the space of managing the process, managing the results. Voting is completed, sorting is on. As we speak, most of the sorted results are on their way to the collation centers. Managing the process at this stage, what would be your input to the people of to Anambra at this stage?
input as an observer. You mean my input as an observer?
Yes.
Continue to be on the watch.
What attitude should Anambra be putting up now?
Yeah. Well, one thing that we expect and which we preach, even in our preliminary report, is that people to remain calm and, of course, expectant, as we go through this. Given the experience, the previous experience, people are very, very sensitive how results are going to be transmitted. So you can see people are very much alert in that area. And of course, the special advice to INEC is to do all the needful, make sure that the technology devices work, there are no hitches, and results are transmitted, they are collated, they are counted and transmitted in a way that reflects transparency that the people do expect. So that's one thing that is very, very important for us to. If you allow me, I just want to underscore the importance of reform, as some of the colleagues in the studio have shared with us. But before then, is to again draw the nexus between election and good governance. And I think that has come out very clearly in the contribution of colleagues there, that look, we cannot get the process and outcome of election has far-reaching implication for governance. And in the same way, governance has a way of affecting how people conduct themselves, react and respond to call to vote. That is very important. And on electoral reform, it's not a one-off process. And electoral reform is not essentially legal. If we're waiting for the day that Nigeria will have a law, electoral law that compel people how to conduct themselves, best practice during election, we may not get it. And that is why the point that is being made about the right civic and voters education. I think there is still much in this area that can be done. And if people conduct themselves within this framework, I think even the phase where we are with respect to Anambra election, collating, counting, sorting, and transmitting will be an easy pass-through. Thank you.
No, what I mean to say is that now the elections are over, because you did not address that component of my question. All the parties, including observer groups like you, are now on the edge, watching out to know what will be the outcome. And I said, what attitude should Anambra be putting up now? The candidates, the political parties, the agents, name it.
Yeah, I have said it. I said, we remain calm and watchful. That is it. All of us remain calm and watchful. This is not the time to go on engaging in disinformation. This is not the time to discredit any other opponent. This is not the time for hate speech. But in addition to that, I said, given the previous experiences that the citizens have had with respect to how results are transmitted, people are on alert. But while they are on alert, they should conduct themselves within the framework of the law.
Sure.
And INEC has the duty to be more transparent so that it can regain the confidence of Nigerians. That's what I've said.
Okay, thank you so much. Now, going back to what we have said before now, in terms of the response by the people, I asked the NOAA director who is here with us, what would have contributed to this? It got to a period Nigerians almost lost it in terms of, is voting a civic responsibility or not? But that awareness has suddenly reverberated back to the fore. So what should Noah be doing to sustain this so that in subsequent elections, we don't need to sound so much warning and advocacy on what people should do to come out and vote?
Well, you have the Noah official around and you decide to pose that question to me. Well, yes, of course, I've also said in the past that Noah has responsibility. But let's look at it very well. Political parties also have responsibility.
Okay.
Yeah, so NOAA is not the only agency that has the responsibility to ensure that things are done correctly in the electoral environment. So imagine a scenario as we have in the country today, where NOAA, civil society, media has enhanced, their activity in preparing the people. But politicians are de-preparing the people. Politicians are de-educating the people. What do you have? And that is the result of what we have. We go all around, do advocacy activity, media gets engaged, NOAA print papers there, but over the night, what happened? You have a negative form of mobilization. You have the use and misuse of money, irregular use of money. And what is it? And when you approach the people, like some of my colleagues that observe people in the market today say, what are you doing in the markets? You're supposed to be voting. And the question is that, let the politician come and give us the money here.
Okay, Prof, let me hold you there, Prof. I'll still come to you. Let's go to Aguata now, where Benson Ostadebe is standing by to update us whether coalition has commenced at the local government where he is right now, Aguata local government.
Coalition is about to start in Aguata local government area. Aguata has about 20 polling units and wards, registration areas, 20 registration areas, that is 20 wards in Aguata. And in Aguata local government area, we have so much voting strength in the state because there's what they call old Aguata that comprises of Aguata and other Umuch and all of that. But in this particular local government area, we can see that the INEC officials are all over the local government area trying to submit their materials that they used to work. And from the materials, the submission of the materials, they are going to tabulate the result sheet in this particular area before they will move it to the INEC headquarters in Oka for final collation. But the collation here is about to commence here in Aguata, and just like other local government areas like Orumba, they've already started their own. And from what you are seeing on ground, everything is peaceful. The security operatives are still here, and I don't know if a cameraman can do justice to the environment by showing us what is going on in this particular area. Looking at the environment, we can see that the ad hoc staff and personnel from INEC are all settled, trying to return both the result, the used and the unused sheets, and those the unused ballot papers, and those that have the result are still collecting their result inside there. And from there, any moment from now, they'll be moving to Oka to submit their result for INEC headquarters to take over in terms of state collation.
Thank you so much, Benson. We'll come back to you to follow up on collation in other locations, but this is the update you are giving us from Aguata. Thank you so much, Benson, at this time.
Thank you very much.
So let's come back to you. Professor Adetula raised a lot of concerns.
Yes.
And I'll want you to respond to that.
Okay, now, around this conversation on civic responsibility, the professor has very good perspective. you know, on what this really should be, the ideal scenario. For us to reach a stage where our citizens are aware that voting is a critical civic responsibility and that they see it as such, there are a number of things that must be at play. The National Orientation Agency has worked with the Nigerian Education Research Council, you know, under the leading and funding of the International Federation for Electoral Systems, to infuse electoral education into schools' curriculum at the basic level. So this is already embedded from primaries 1 all the way to JS3. It is something that is compulsory and they learn as part of the subjects that they need to learn, the civic responsibility of participating in elections. And this is already being delivered. That's one effort that National Orientation Agency have participated in. But I must point this out. The funds for voter education is domiciled with INEC. In this era, under the leadership of current Director General Malam Larry Issa Onilu, he has led us to the National Assembly on a strong advocacy for a redress in that area. No Nigerian calls out or holds INEC responsible for a deficit in voter education. Once you mention civic responsibility, voter education, the minds of Nigerians go straight to the National Orientation Agency. And indeed, we have democracy education as part of our mandate, you know, at the agency. In the current era, we have a full department dedicated to civics, values, and democracy education. Even in our overarching national campaign that we're running now under the Nigerian Identity Project, with the National Values Charter as its driving force, in the Nigeria Promise, we have democracy education embedded, you know, in that. This is an off-season election. Not a dime has been given to National Orientation Agency for the purpose of playing the role that we're supposed to play in this particular Anambra off-season election.
Did that stop you from functioning?
It didn't. We have to be creative, even inside the difficult situation that we find ourselves in. Because we know that the blame and the calling out will still come to us and not go to INEC, who has the funds for voter education in this off-season election that is going on in Anambra at the moment. It's an anomaly, you know, and we know that it will not change itself.
Okay, let me just pause you there and go to. I love this. We'll still go to the nitty-gritty of the elections, but let's engage this.
Yes.
Electoral education, voter education. Is there a difference? Is it possible there could be a policy for electoral education, yet we don't have enough voter education?
No, generally civic education, under the civic education that you see civil society do, you also have the component specifically that has to do with voter education. And civil society, since the return of democracy, in fact, 1998, when we formed Transition Monitoring Group, we have been engaging in the voter education in Nigeria, because the voter education is so essential that, you know, you need to guide people how to vote. You need to make sure that they do not engage in violence. You need to ensure that people do not engage in anything that will undermine the credibility of the electoral process. And therefore, they even need to know how to even print, you know, you understand, we do all those demonstrations, we do all those teaching, and we also engage, you know, the electorate, you know, and even the elected, you know, the INEC, you know, itself. It's a total comprehensive, you know, engagement that civil society do. Now, very interesting, civil society are doing this work without one naira from any of these agencies that they have even the resources. We did not collect any money from nobody. Civil society is using its expertise, its own personal resources, its time, its intellect, you know, its networking to raise resources to be able to sensitize, educate Nigerians on role and responsibility that is primarily supposed to be driven by the political parties, INEC, and National Orientation Agency. So it is not only the National Orientation Agency who is starved or who lacks resources. We in civil society, we do not even have the money. As you can see, even the international partners are not providing resources to civil society in Nigeria. We are working day and night to make sure that we still continue to promote peaceful coexistence, to promote education that will make Nigerians be able to do the right thing. So it's a big challenge, and nobody is paying civil society to do this. Nobody is providing us with any incentives, you know. In fact, apart from excessive taxes and harassment from the federal revenue that they are trying to even make sure that we do not function, you know, we do not get anything from government outside, you know, like I said, even some government official actually seeing civil society as critical partners to support them, to work with them. We have relationship with the National Orientation Agency. We have relationship with INEC. We have relationship with various government agencies, you know, because we need to work together, because we are not anti-government. I always emphasize that civil society, the one that we belong, are not anti-government. We are not politicians. We are not related to any politician. What we just want, we want a just fair system that can work transparently with accountability. That's all that genuine civil society are doing. We are not promoting criminals or criminality. We are not promoting injustice. We insist that our country must be run transparently, must be run in a democratic order, must follow due process, constitutionality must be applied in all that we are doing. That's all you see civil society are doing. So as against what some people, you know, had wrong notion about, you know, civil society, oh, they are making money, oh, they are anti-government. We are not. That is not true. But you definitely have some infiltration of some characters who usually come and hide under NGO or civil society to do things. But any genuine civil society, you can verify that organization from relevant government agencies like Corporate Affairs Commission, like even the Federal Revenue, because we file taxes, we do everything that is required by the law. So we then get money from anybody, and no individual, you know, is also giving us money. For some of us in our organization, we don't even collect money from, you know, corporate organizations that are engaged in environmental or human rights or corruption, you know, related things. We verify, even if you are to give money. But in the case of organization that, you know, I belong, we don't even collect money from all these corporations, because it will stain and restrict your, you know, work and be able to say the truth. So that is why we remain the way we are. We raise funds, you know, based on foundation, call for proposal to do things. And it's a competitive thing. If you look at one of the call for proposal, you will see like 1,000 applicants across the world. You apply based on your capacity. You are able to be selected, not payable, not you know, any thing. So civil society is going through a lot, but we are just keeping quiet because we believe in our country. We are passionate about our country. Whether money or no money, we must work for our country.
Okay. Now, the elections are over. I used to imagine this. The elections were fixed for Anambra today. INEC comes out, sets the tone, and no electorate turns up. I ask this when at times you imagine that maybe INEC imagine that they're doing the electorate a favor. So what do you say about this?
Yes, that's a very dangerous scenario for our democracy, I must say. And it's not something that any of us would want, because when you look at a number of surveys, Afrobarometer survey, you would see that the data shows that 70%, not less than 70% of Nigerians from their most recent or from very recent surveys, 70%, around that threshold of Nigerians, believe that democracy is the preferred vehicle for the realization of our national aspirations. So it means that there has to be a whole of government and whole of society approach in investing and nurturing the democratic process. And it is very good that this question earlier asked about civil society, about NOA, came up because if an NOA...
I brought it up to relate to Anambra.
Yes, yes.
So we don't lose track.
And you can see that even without the resources, with the constraints in the system, even the shrinking civic space, we have demonstrated resilience. NOA, civil society, to some extent, traditional institutions, societal influencers, there has been that resilience to say that, yes, even though the conditions are not as they should be in terms of availability of resources to do this work, we'll stretch ourselves, we'll go the extra mile to ensure that we let our citizens know that this is an important thing for them to engage the process and engage it from the point of view of information. Some of us are into fact-checking, for example. No government agencies buy me data. I have to source my own data. I have to sit down.
We walked away from that. We are back to Anambra.
Yeah. So it's connected. These things are connected, and that's why if you now want me to anchor it on Anambra,
yes, that's our target.
Yes, to anchor it on Anambra, we can see that there are good outcomes from Anambra, and the way we sustain this outcome is not just to make it a happenstance. There has to be a structured approach in subsequent election, and that's why one of the very key recommendations that civil society has made for electoral reform is that there has to be a multi-stakeholder approach to voter education and that whole process of giving the citizens the right orientation. It cannot just be something that is domiciled in one agency. So INEC, NOA, civil society, and all the all the other actors that are not the state per se must be able to participate in that process, because that level of responsibility has to be diffused, and the number of stakeholders participating have to be very diverse, such that we're not able to bring into the voting pool, because government is talking about expanding the tax net. We should be also be talking about expanding the pool to ensure the democratic accountability. So if the outcomes in Anambra show now, for example, that we have improved beyond 10.2% that David has referred to repeatedly, it will show that, oh, we're achieving the result. And these results are measurable. That's the good thing about it. You can know whether there's a decline in the participation from your efforts, or you can also still see if there's an improvement in the participation from what the data tells you. And the moment we are able to do that and we get more citizens to participate in the process, then, of course, democratic accountability will be the next outcome of that, and of course that would result in improvement in governance.
Okay, let's go back to Professor Aditula. Prof, I believe you're still there with us. Let me be sure you're there. Very interesting. Okay, Prof. Okay, beautiful. Now, I always liken an election like this to a football match, top-notch soccer, but in terms of football match, a stalemate comes where maybe the two teams are 1-1 draw. Now there's a period to select those who will play the penalty shootout. But in the case of elections, it is not yet over until the results are declared by the umpire, in this case, the Independent National Electoral Commission. Now everybody's waiting. The INEC officials and the coalition officials are busy working to ensure that this election result so far is transmitted to the state INEC headquarters for final declaration of results. Now we have consistently talked about all the groupings. We've never mentioned the traditional institution. Could it be the seamless and flawless outing by the electorate? We never had issue of thuggery or snatching of ballot box. The traditional institution played a role?
Well, I didn't have the privilege of going to the entire 21 local governments, but luckily one of the units polling unit I went to had one of your reporters who I've seen being featured here not long. Yes, we saw a number of traditional rulers, sizable number, coming to vote, and including religious leaders. In fact, there was a case of one priest that was seen as blessing the people while they sat patiently and also encouraging them to remain calm. And of course, when some of the Igwes came in, they were also asking the people to remain calm. And like I said in my initial intervention, that there are communities where the people really own the polling process, either for good or otherwise, where they threw their weight behind the polling process, including supporting with chairs, with things that will make the people to be comfortable and remain calm. And my preliminary, finding was such that there have been some involvement of the community in mobilizing the people in that community, and not necessarily waiting for either INEC or NOAA or political party to make that happen. So we have seen that instances. Whether as part of lesson learned from this, and possibly so many of instances of this in the past, where traditional and community institutions and structures are integrated fully into our civic and voter education system. Well, that's another thing. But where we are today is such that our formal structures and institutions, including NOAA, including INEC, are mobilized to do voters' education in a context that see election as an epiphenomenal thing, that, election has come, let there be jingles, let there be everything, and it will go like that. But in addition to what colleagues have said, is that voter education cannot make impact where we have not paid attention to the general civic education. And until that we return back to the beginning, we are teaching civics, like the NOAA officials have said, we are teaching civics, the study of how people behave in the society. Where that happens, then there will be a foundation on which to build this. But if this is not there, and we just wake up in the morning and we think we will turn the people to good voter, it's not going to be that very, very easy.
Okay, as we are, there's a tendency for desperation as we speak. So let's speak to the issue of mis and disinformation, as it were. I'm sure by now, if you go to some social media platforms, you start seeing results coming out from every sports, declaring here, declaring there, whereas the official mandate lies with INEC to declare results. What advice or word of caution do you have for us, the electorate in Anambra, on this?
You asked a similar question not long ago, that what should be the pattern of behavior and conduct. We have to respect the law. That is it. Rule of law is very basic, and it doesn't apply to big, high issue. Even in our little spaces, what the electoral INEC guidelines says and what the law says is that, look, it's only INEC that can declare result. Any other thing you have, any other permutation, any other calculation you have is your private property, so to speak. So we learn to wait for that to happen. But one of the things that trigger, some misreaction is when people perceive lack of transparency in the process. So on the part of INEC, they have to do things in a way that reflects and expresses transparency. On the part of the people themselves, they have to remain calm and respect the law of the land and wait for INEC to do the needful, after which, you can now react also even within the law.
Okay, Prof, we'll come back to you. Let me get back to, now, one word, transparency. The people were conscientized, preparations were made, they came out and voted freely. What they expect is transparency. Because you can imagine someone are following the votes the way as it were. For example, if I voted maybe at Ineje, and I saw that XY votes counted there, and at the final point of collation, I checked that Ineje, it is no more the XYZ votes. Transparency calls to question. Let's speak to transparency in this process.
Yes, it's non-negotiable, and it's a demand or an imperative that the law makes on everybody that is part of the process. And if we look at the lessons from the past of our elections, one of the reasons why you have people suddenly run riots is where they perceive that somebody is trying to play funny or is not, giving out or pretending the process in the way that it should be according to the laws. And of course, misinformation thrives in that environment. And I think the question about transparency, it's totally connected to the question you asked about countering disinformation earlier on, because this is an area of interest for me. I'm a countering disinformation expert. In fact, that's my forte in civil society. And the way it works is that where transparency is lacking, then the purveyors of misinformation have a fertile ground to actually disseminate, whatever they cook up. Especially in the time of generative AI playing a role, images can be manipulated. We have deep fake videos. You have bots. You have, a lot of computerized kind of manipulation of information that many people in the electoral process don't have sufficient digital literacy to be able to identify those things and then ensure that those things are debunked. And that is where the role of fact checkers come in. People who dedicate themselves, they're not just journalists now, but they are people who are able to use things like digital forensics to be able to investigate the source of an information and then be able to educate the larger population to let them know this is the true picture of things and don't fall for this clickbait. But the challenge with the fact-checking role, or what we describe as the verification role, is that much of the time the cooked up information has already gone way ahead. It's already gone viral. So the role of the fact checker, may not be as impactful as the initial information that has gone out. And that is why we have to now do a whole process of inoculation, which we refer to as media literacy or digital literacy, especially in the online space. And then there are some accountability issues that also make it very, very open for some of these things to, and these accountability issues have to do with the role of the tech platform, the technology platforms. Because now, the traditional media spaces are even at the mercy of some of those platforms. The TikToks of this world, the X of this world, one influencer has millions of followers. And so the traditional method of communication, like David was talking about, is no longer sufficient to be able to debunk certain claims. And that is why we keep on insisting in civil society that tech platform accountability is fundamental if we want to have a democratic process that is credible, and if we want an election, electoral system that has integrity. Tech platform accountability, because some of these technology companies, they are almost now like countries on their own, and they can sway elections in certain direction through the manipulation of information. And so part of the challenge even fact checkers kind of encounter is that a fact checker would even debunk a fake result, for example, and then you expect that an X will remove it from the space based on the partnerships that exist, that say, okay, if you are able to help us fact check an information and we see it is wrong, we'll take it off our platforms. But these tech platforms never get to do that. They never get to remove some of that fake information from that. In fact, go back there 6 months down the line, those things are still there on their platforms. And so it means that we have to have some form of accountability, whereby we have the right set of laws in place. We have and I think the data protection, the data commission, one of those government agencies, has been doing a lot in that regard. But we need to put more pressure, because many of our citizens have access to information from these platforms. And so, it's something that we have to address for the integrity of our election. The last point I'll make on that is that social media and technology can be a two-way street. It can be used for the negative mobilization that has been mentioned. It can also be used in a positive sense. For example, somebody at their polling unit right now, where the result has been pasted, if that person takes a picture of the result and puts it up on social media, if that is the right result, it's not a bad thing. In fact, it deepens the accountability in the system. But if that person is spreading fake results, that one is the bad one. So we should, in trying to talk about those kinds of ensuring that we have accurate this thing, we should not also discourage the people that want to use those platforms positively to enhance the transparency of the process.
That leads me. Okay.
I'm really impressed by the contributions that...
the very last one, right?
Yes, that Arms Free is making around the challenge of, handling information in our
as
electoral...
As it concerns Anambra State, right?
Yes,
now.
yes.
Information. We are at that critical stage.
Yes, ecosystem. And I'm glad about some of the efforts that CDD, Center for Journalism, Innovation and Development are making around this challenge of disinformation, misinformation and malinformation in our information ecosystem, especially around the elections. CDD have done quite a lot of work, and they've identified, I think, about 7 strands of challenges around the information ecosystem concerning this Anambra election. Exactly. And Hands Free highlighted some of them: gendered misinformation, and then misinformation around the security challenges that were anticipated to happen, along with all of that. At National Orientation Agency, over the years, we had run fact-checking courses. The intention around that was to capacitate at least 1,000 people in each state to have the capacity to interrogate information and to debunk disinformation and misinformation. And we had approached this very energetically with support from Center for Democracy and Development and Center for Journalism, Innovation, and Development. I'm glad that Hands Free, from the civil society perspective, is looking at the issue of regulation now. He spoke about tech giants, the owners of these platforms. Unfortunately for us in this country and in some countries within the African context, those tech owners don't respect us because they don't have presence in our country, and it is the challenges around that led to the Moscow flexing that you saw in the previous administration when X was banned. At that point, civil society didn't quite understand what was going on, But that action, as undesirable as it was, brought X to a negotiating table. And there was conversation around, you must register in our country, you must have presence, so that you are subject to our own local rules and all of that, you know. But there's this challenge. And I think that the way to resolve it, about putting in place specific regulation of governance around the social media space, is for civil society to propose, you know, because if it comes from the outside, either from the politicians or from government and all of that, there's suspicion around that. Justifiable, you might say, because some of these rules are put in place with malice, you know, and all of that. But I had met with Olorunyomi, who's the
CJID.
Yes, of CJID, and I spoke about this with him, and he saw light with me. Why don't civil society and practitioners around that information ecosystem come out with a proposal, and then there's a sitting with the lawmakers, and then we look at it from both perspectives, and we finally come out with a governance framework for our social media space.
Thanks for that contribution. Let's come back to Anambra, and I want to go to Russia and then go to Prof. The Electoral Act, misinformation. What does this say regarding sanctions? Because it looks as though some people feel maybe the Electoral Act is just one toothless bulldog document. So you can just do anything and just on a person. The Electoral Act and misinformation. What sanctions?
So actually, most of these issues are, are contained in our electoral law, but because of the impunity in the system, people don't really care. And because of the people that usually break these laws are people that are probably connected with the government, whether at the state or at the national level, so they get away with it. For example, if you commit electoral offenses, the Attorney General of a state, like say Anambra, if there are some if there are some electoral violence, perpetrated by some people, the state Attorney General is the one to prosecute those offenders. And if those offenders are sponsored allegedly, for example, by the state government, you can be rest assured that nothing is going to happen. So sometimes it is the state impunity that is fueling these atrocities at the state level, because they are their people. And even when you have, clear case of abuses of our law, you would see that these guys, even if they are arrested, the chieftain of that, party or state will go and bail them. And we have had instances of people being killed, and the people, because they are the ones running the state, they will just go bail the person, and that's the end of the issue. And therefore, there will not be any justice. So in this instance, I think part of the civic education that we are talking about, the voter education, is actually looking at the various components of our electoral law, pointing out areas that you are not supposed to play with, because it has a huge, implication and consequences, and there will be sanction for that if you violate. We try to bring those areas to highlight it to, particularly the voters, the electorate, and like I said, it is up to the government, because if there's no political will to punish those people that have violated the electoral law, then it becomes difficult, because we in civil society, we cannot punish anybody. So it is still the government. What we can only do is to provide credible information and data, to the government to say XYZ happened and there's need for you to do XYZ. That's the limit at which we can do. We cannot go and punish anybody, because we don't have that constitutional mandate to do that. So as much as we want to see some of this thing happen, it still depends on the government. Government must have the will, whether it is their party members, whether it is the party of other, political party members that have committed that, in order to sanitize and bring confidence into the process. anybody that did not do the right thing must, must face the sanction, must face the thing. If you continue with this selective justice, then people would see that the whole thing is not fair, and you are not meant to bring, sanity, in the process. So I think, for me, with regard to the Anambra election, already, like I said, CDD had deployed quite number of observers and fact checkers. Because apart from the observers, CDD had also deployed fact checkers just to ensure that all this misinformation, distortion, spreading lies and rumors are also checked, just to make sure that the process is smooth and it did not, run into trouble. We will continue to provide that, support at every level of governance, even beyond the election. We will continue to make sure that appropriate and accurate information is given to the general public. This is what we are determined to do, and we are doing that, and we are already seeing how impactful that has been in order to change, the negative narratives. And let me tell you, a lot of Nigerians, they believe in civil society. And that is why we in civil society, we are not like a newsbreaker. We do things based on investigation, based on research. If you see civil society coming to talk on something, it has research, it has evidence on it. We don't just talk on emotion. We talk on fact and evidence, And that is why you see sometimes even some people in government who don't like civil society, they have no option then to keep quiet, because they know we are not lying, we are not blackmailing, we are not distorting things, we are not misrepresenting things. We are talking based on fact, based on evidence. Whatever you see us talking, and when I say civil society, I mean the like minds of the civil society we work with, not
I
those.
totally agree with
exactly.
you.
Let's
go to Newi. We'll still sustain this, and when we come back, starting with Prof, we shall be looking at the political parties' sense of entitlement or soliciting for votes. So let's go to Onome Okadigbo. She's at Newi, I think Newi East or Newi North, where she wants to give us updates regarding collation from that end.
Okay, I'm at Newi North.
Okay, Newi North.
Local government area of Anambra State, where different polling unit officers are here. Well, they are trickling in. They've not really settled down, but most of them are coming in with their results. Then the collation officers is not all that are on seats. They are still expecting more people to come.
So what has been
for the moment, those that are here, they are seated waiting. Have security agencies that are here also waiting for the process to begin.
From the last point you spoke with us to this point, tell us what it has been like.
Okay, on my way to this place, as expected, we saw security agencies manning their beats, ensuring that there is peace in every area we passed. Then getting here to the Newi North local government area, we saw polling unit officers coming in with their results tightly held to their chest to avoid any stories. And when we got to the collation center here, we met some of the collation officers still waiting for their colleagues to join them so that the process can begin. For now, everywhere is peaceful and there's so much anticipation in the air.
What's the security presence like around there?
Well, I would say the security presence here is watertight for now. No skirmishes, no fighting, no trouble, there's no shoveling. People are just obeying and doing what they are expected to do.
Okay, Onome, I forgot to ask you this question the last time you joined us. So far, I've not heard this trend of news in this election. Has there been any issue with the media in this election?
Viva.
The media.
No. the process has been seamless. The media personnel have been going about their duty without any form of harassment. It has been work, orderliness all through our entire coverage.
Okay, thank you so much, Onome. That was Onome giving us update.
Well, I feel great navigating from Nnewi North to Nnewi South.
Okay.
It has been interesting. At the beginning, I had some apprehension about the security situation, but getting on the road, I found out that there was no need for worries, there was no need for concern. From Oka, where we started from, to Nnewi North, Nnewi South. There's some local governments between Nnewi North and South. Yes, it was interesting, seamless, and as expected.
Thank you so much, Onome Okadigbo. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
She just joined us from Nnewi North, where collation, from what she's saying. I was deliberate about that question because you always had cases where the media is attacked. For those who are into some misgivings, they feel that camera has taken things, you hear destruction, harassment, all that. So we're happy that also even the media is untouched in this case, not untouched that they're above the law. Now let's sustain our conversation at this point. You know, during elections like this, you find the political parties, as much as they are on the level playing field, some political parties feel this sense of entitlement, rather than thinking towards, working towards soliciting votes, working towards winning an election. They just have this sense of entitlement. It's already our own election. So within the ambit of this election, Prof, okay, we'll come to you, Prof. Let's just take this short for just 2 or 3 minutes, and I'll come back to you.
How many hours are we?
Thanks so much for being there with us on Anambra election, governorship election 2025, an off-cycle election dotting the landscape of 21 local government areas in Anambra State. Prof, I believe you're still there with us. By way of your last comments at this time, would you say, judging from what we have seen in the Anambra election, and we hope that as we sustain this transmission, we'll get to know what's happening. What's your final thought? What will you say? Are we there regarding political culture? By way of your final thoughts in Nigeria?
No. We are not there. We are not there. We are not there. We're still far from where we desire to be. But the responsibility is not only for one person or one agency or one institution. It's for all of us. We need quite a lot to do. The Anambra election, in a way, presents opportunity for us to do a lot of reflection and grab some lesson learned on which we can quickly build, revisit our strategy, remodel, our thoughts on quite a lot of things that we have glossed over or assume they don't have impact on our electoral process. And a few of that have come out from the conversation here today. We have seen how critical we need to address the issue of civic and voter education. We've seen how critical we have to address the issue of governance and link election to governance, to good governance. These are things that we need to take a look at while we celebrate that, we don't have violent incidents here and there, but today we don't know what the outcome may be. Whatever the outcome, there are lessons that we can pick, not necessarily from the outcome, but the process of polling, and which we can take home with. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Victor Adetula, Chair, Election Analysis Center, EAC. You joined us via Zoom. It was nice having your time with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
And back here in the studio, just let's do a wrap-up, like our last thoughts in this. I took him on political culture. Yes, we started by saying that, yes, the landlords, the electorate in Anambra State are saying that tenant, who is the governor, his tenure is over, they need to have a new governor. Between now and maybe the early hours of tomorrow, maybe tonight or early hours of tomorrow, we'll get to know who they have decided. So by way of your last thoughts for today.
Yeah, my last thoughts will be encapsulated in the words of Mario Matthew Cuomo, who was one-time governor of New York. By the way, he said, you campaign in poetry and you govern in prose. So my expectation is that now that they have campaigned, the people have voted, what is to follow next is governance. And that quotation about prose, governing in prose means that you now have to do the hard work of delivering for the people. And that's the only way we achieve the nexus between democracy and development.
Mr. Jenny?
Well, my expectation is that the gains we have made, in today's election in Anambra should be escalated to other off-cycle elections that we have next year in Ekiti and Osun. We should not, see any form of violence. We should not be able to see, this antagonistic approach to the whole thing and making this election to be like a war. I think if we are able to replicate what we have seen so far in Anambra to the other off-cycle election, then we can begin to predict that the 2027 general election will equally, be a good, opportunity for us to overcome the historical election crisis that we have in Nigeria, with the determination of INEC to ensure that things are run smoothly, and with the suspicion that Nigerians have had about the or misgiving about INEC. I think if INEC takes some of those lessons and then further improve on these usual logistic challenges, I think Nigerians will begin to believe in our ability of electoral body. Equally important, if the security will also replicate this neutrality, I think part of the success that we have seen so far is because maybe the security also have realized that they need to face the constitutional role they are given to do, which is to make sure that they protect the voters and not be biased. So if that is replicated, I can assure you that a lot will also change. Equally important, the intensity of the effort that civil society and National Orientation Agency had played in Anambra, if we continue to replicate it, it will also lead to the changing of the whole thing. And by the time we do that, the political culture that we have, the political culture that we have in the country, which should be centered around issues-based campaign and accountability.
Thank you very much. Let me just hold it because of time. just maybe a second or two.
Okay, then, so I want to call on Nigerians to support our government, support institutions, support the new leadership at INEC, but also to be vigilant, and to know that as citizens, democracy is not all about elections. It's about being vigilant to ensure that the outcome of elections produce the expectations that led to us making voter choices.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Anambra election, governorship election 2025, we are not done yet, but NTA is assuring you we'll keep you glued, minute by minute developments, but the full blast of this transmission resumes tomorrow in the morning. Thanks so much for your time, and we believe so far so good. All our reporters, all our producers, management, we put all this together. We have tried our very best to ensure that the entire Anambra is known to the world today, and indeed, by tomorrow when we resume, we will know truly who in the Anambra have decided will be their next tenant at the government house, Oka. Thanks for your time. On behalf of all of us,